The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Now, it's a bit misleading saying of the apocalypse because they have already been, and they were apocalyptic events, you must admit, but I'm going to go over those now. And of all the events in world history, these would be the most likely to appear in the book of Revelation. And guess what? They do. The Four Horsemen. Number one. I initially thought Nero. It was the best I could do at the time. I don't know why I didn't come up with it in the first place. Napoleon, yeah, just before World War One, Second Horseman, Great Depression, Third Horseman, and World War Two, Fourth Horseman. And these were serious apocalyptic events. And I think I've got it. They were the biggest events in world history, the most likely to appear. And the Fourth Horseman, the Bible says, will control a fourth, there it is, a fourth of the world. I'll just find that. And it doesn't mean that he will kill a fourth of the population. It's not worded like that. Yes. King James Version. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Yeah, so they were given power over a fourth part of the earth. And there's no way of measuring that, there's just no way of doing it. So I had a look, okay, at the countries involved in World War II, and it was almost the whole world. So, okay, that's not a fourth. But I don't see how we can measure this. One thing I want to go over, notice that these four horsemen of the apocalypse, they're supernatural horsemen, angels, just like the rest of Revelation, okay? The angels make volcanoes erupt, okay? The angels separate the mountains and islands from their places, yeah? The angels cover the sky in darkness and blot out the sun so that no one can see the stars and the moon and the sun and so on. Okay. And in Revelation chapter 6, the angels are the four horsemen. They're not literal horsemen. Okay, one of them is Napoleon, the first one, hence the crown on his head, signifying an actual king, a ruler. But the other three horsemen don't have crowns on their heads. Yeah, interesting that. And this is how I was able to determine the first horseman. When it said crown, I was like, keyword, this guy's going to be a king. But there's no crowns on the others, so we're not looking at kings there. And what's interesting is, many say the first, that's what I love it, the first horseman is supposed to be the Antichrist. Well, guess what? That's exactly who he was. Yeah? Napoleon, the Antichrist of his time, the butcher, as Nostradamus calls him. And he was definitely an Antichrist. Okay. As I said before, in a previous video, he captured Pope Pius VII, yeah, locked him up, because he wouldn't meet his demands. Yeah. He wouldn't give him total control and magnify him. In fact, he did the opposite. Yeah, he excommunicated the tyrant. Yeah, and that's the reason why he locked him up, because the Pope excommunicated Napoleon. So there we go, the first horseman. The second, the red horse. Oh, get it, I mean, it couldn't be a better description, okay, of the First World War. A red horse, okay, a bloody war, the First World War, yeah? And it was given power to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Yeah. First World War. Peace taken from the earth. Okay. And that they should kill one another. The whole earth. But notice it says, take peace from the earth. World War. Yeah? I know I'm right. Okay. Oh, it's the way you interpret it. No. This is a perfect definition of Napoleon, World War I, the Great Depression and World War II. It's not how I interpret it. Right, let's carry on. Sorry, but you know, I want to teach this stuff and people won't let me because they're like, oh well, it's your interpretation. Right. They should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. A great sword. Yeah. And then the black horse. The black horse of famine, as I writing my book. And what does this black horse have? What does he carry with him? A pair of balances, and a voice saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. You know this is talking about a famine, yeah? World famine, global depression. I'm just amazed no one else has interpreted it like that. Well, they probably have. I haven't looked online. You know, I've done it myself, but I'm sure other people must have, you know, interpreted this the same as I have. Because it's just a perfect description, yeah. And the pale horse, the 4th one. And the name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Now when it says with the beasts of the earth, now, hard to tell here, but if we follow Daniel and how we're supposed to interpret the beast in the rest of Revelation, we're talking about kingdoms. Okay, many might say men. Oh, it's talking about kings in charge, yeah, beasts of the earth. Okay, maybe. However, because of how Daniel he tells us a beast is a kingdom, I'm going to go with that. Killing with the kingdoms of the earth. But you can interpret it however you like. Either way would make sense, yeah? The kings or the kingdoms, okay? And there you go, there you go. Now, I'm going to have to edit my book. I am doing a 2nd edition, and just so you know, I will be changing the First Horseman, who I previously fought Nero. I knew it was light years away from the others, but it was all I could come up with at the time. Nero was an Antichrist, yeah, and I needed an Antichrist to go there, because everyone says the First Horseman is the Antichrist. But guess what? There's another Antichrist, yeah, after Nero. Now there was Antiochus, yeah, Nero. These are the Antichrists I'm aware of so far, okay, the biblical ones, and also what Nostradamus, what he believes were Antichrists, who he believes were Antichrists, and also a lot of the world would agree. Nero, Antiochus, Napoleon and Hitler. These men were Antichrists of their time. So, I mean, I've still got an Antichrist in there, just to fill the space, but I'm changing that to Napoleon. I'm changing that to Napoleon now. Because I'm going to be doing that, I think I'm going to read this little caption I've put for Nero, as it's going to be deleted, because it's It's quite informative. The White Horse of Satan, first seal. Roman Emperor Nero, 666, the Antichrist, is personally responsible for destroying most of Rome, intent on building a new city in his name once Rome and its inhabitants had been reduced to ashes. And he begins the first Roman-Jewish war. He kills his mother, poisons his brother, feeds Christians to lions in the Colosseum. What this guy did to Christians was horrifying. And crucifies and burns them alive in his garden as a nightly illumination. Tacitus Annals, 1540 and 44. And this was 54 to 68 AD. This horseman wears a crown, signifying a literal king. And you can read the others in the book. I've also read those in a previous video, so I don't need to go over them again. So there you go. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, they have already been, because this is the perfect description. You couldn't get a better description of those events I have mentioned. Alright, it's spot on, spot on. Just as the testimonies, yeah, in the Old Testament, and the testimony of Joshua, yeah, and of his testimony of Jericho, what happened at Jericho. I go over this in my book, and again, you couldn't have asked for a more detailed description of what happened, and the archaeological excavations have confirmed Joshua's testimony. It's accurate down to the finest detail, okay? The city wasn't plundered, Rahab's house wasn't destroyed, and there's a substantial scar going through the city wall where an earthquake must have taken place. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what they find, and the date as well. Yeah, the dating of the Jericho city during Joshua's conquest. Yep, again, spot on the date. So they're not just fairy tales, okay? They're testimonies, Old and New Testaments. Yeah. And although might be a bit exaggerated in places, they are very accurate. Okay. Throughout. Yeah. And who knows, maybe it isn't exaggerated. Maybe it isn't exaggerated. Like the height of the giant Goliath. There were giants in those days, the Bible says. Okay. Genesis, I think it is. Yeah. So, and I've seen online. Again, I've only seen images. I've not actually seen it myself. I think they've actually got one in a museum in Japan or somewhere. I've seen people walking around this skeleton, this giant skeleton, and this guy is enormous. So I mean, considering how detailed the rest of it is, maybe they're not exaggerations either. Yeah. And this is my book, yeah, where I've interpreted Revelation. I believe I've decoded Revelation. I've got it in here. I'm certain on the Four Horsemen. Yeah, absolutely. And the first horseman. I mean, as I said before, the end of this verse, 6:2, I read it and I thought, no, that doesn't really fit Nero. He went forth conquering and to conquer. And Nero didn't really do that. Yeah. Yeah, he was just a madman who liked to party a lot, and he was mentally unstable. But Napoleon, absolutely a conqueror. One of the greatest conquerors of all time, Napoleon. And when you look at who conquered during this time, when all these horsemen, well, the other three horsemen, okay, yeah, Napoleon. He was the greatest conqueror during that time, and he fits nicely, yeah. Not immediately before World War I, but close enough. Close enough. Jericho, Countdown to Oblivion, a prophetic revelation and guide by Adam Cherrington. That's me. And I'm doing a second edition, so look out for that. And all of this is going in it, everything up there, because yeah, everyone was looking at Europe for the final Antichrist, yeah, the worst, the one who will do worse than all of the others. Everyone points at Europe. However, when you read Revelation chapter 12 and you consider there's a beast and a red dragon, but the red dragon persecutes the woman who bore the male child, reference to Mary and Jesus, and Christians persecuting Christians. And you think, who else is this? And the red dragon makes war with them, yeah, but they win. So you think, who could this be then? There would have to be a superpower, and look at what we have. European Union, crown of 12 stars, yeah, and everyone in Europe, not everyone, but a lot of us, probably most of the world, are Christian here. I know there are lots of Christians in other parts of the world, but Europe is very Christian, okay. Yeah, so I'll be including all of this in the second edition of my book, and I went here, as everyone else has, but I think they're making a big mistake. I know what's bugging me the most is Nostradamus. He was very accurate with a lot of his, prophecy. And he says the third Antichrist will be born in Ravenna. Okay? There's a Ravenna in Italy. But we're the good guys in the end. Yeah? We're the good guys. Well, it's over. Okay? It's done. Proof of the revelation of Jesus Christ. Irrefutable proof. I have interpreted the Four Horsemen and decoded Revelation chapter 6 successfully. And this is it. If you want proof that the book of Revelation isn't just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, read chapter 6 and apply the Four Horsemen I have mentioned. The first horseman, Napoleon, who went forth conquering and to conquer. Okay, Napoleon was one of the greatest conquerors of all time. He was also an Antichrist, yeah, identified as an Antichrist by Nostradamus, okay, who foresaw his coming. He crowns himself Emperor of France, and he attempted to change the Christian faith, okay, to suit him. This guy was an Antichrist. He burnt all of Moscow to the ground whilst standing watching it in amazement, and he imprisoned the Pope. He was the first horseman. This is irrefutable proof, okay, of revelation of Jesus Christ. That's what I'm giving you here. Yeah. Second Horseman, World War I. Third Horseman, Global Depression. Fourth Horseman, World War II. All within... The fall of Napoleon was early 19th century, okay? And the end of World War II, mid 20th century. All of these historic events happened at the same time, and guess what? They're in Revelation. They're in Revelation. No way is this a coincidence. It can't be, okay? The odds are overwhelming. So there you go. It's over, alright? you better all start believing. Because it's truth. Yeah? And we're at the end of chapter 6, and we're due to expect a great earthquake. One so great that it will move islands and mountains out of their places. That's what's coming up. And I'll tell you what, I don't think it's going to be long before we get this, because of what has just happened. Yeah, Napoleon, the wars and the depression. We've had a moment of peace, as it says at the end of Revelation 6. We get a little rest, but then we get a huge earthquake, a great quake. And this, I mean, to move islands and mountains out of their places and make the kings of the earth cower in their underground bunkers, this is probably going to be worse than the super eruption of Yellowstone. Yeah? And earthquakes always kill more. The death tolls in earthquakes, yeah, worse than an eruption, volcanic eruption, yeah. So, yeah, that's coming up. Blood moons, apparently we've had a load of blood moons. The earthquake is mentioned before that, but we may get blood moons, we might still get them, okay. Whoa. This is where we are, this is where we are. And I don't think this great quake is going to be the one at Israel, because there's one, yeah, there's one later on in Revelation, and I think it's the one that destroys the Russian offensive, okay. Hailstones come down from the sky, destroying the Russian offensive, but there's also a great quake mentioned. So we're not looking at the one at Israel, yeah, that comes later on. But the one we receive, the whole world will know about it. That's the whole idea, to make man repent. But as with the wars and the Great Depression, these events happened and man still didn't understand what they really were, okay? They were warnings. And what do? We go on about how victorious we were during the Second World War, and oh yeah, it's helped us advance technologically and all this nonsense. You know? And what do? We create heroes out of it. Okay, let's not disrespect the dead, but let's see it for what it really was, yeah? Let's not glorify it and say how victorious we were and so on. Everybody lost. Everybody loses in war, and there were warnings, right? And nobody understood it. Nobody saw them as warnings. And people wonder why this stuff happens in the first place. Unbelievable. Just carry on oblivious. Yeah? Not repenting. Not accepting Jesus Christ. Well, you better do it now, because I've just proved it. Yeah? Proof. I've given you it. Irrefutable. Irrefutable. Yeah. Read it. Revelation chapter 6. And it is a very precise and detailed description of each. Okay. The white horse. Yeah? The first horseman, the white horse. Napoleon rode a white horse. Okay, there's pictures of him riding a white horse. I've put him on in my book, in the second edition. Okay. There's a painting of Napoleon on a white horse. He crowns himself. First horseman has a crown. Yeah? He was one of the greatest conquerors of all time. And I quote, he went forth conquering and to conquer. Revelation. Second horseman. He took peace from the earth and made all of man to fight each other. Sound familiar? Yeah, you got it. World War I. World War. Peace from the earth. Oh, come on, man. Red horse, blood, death. Alright? Third horseman, pestilence, famine, yeah? A measure of wheat, and so on, it says, you know. Horseman with the scales, yeah? It's talking about the global depression. And the fourth, well, I don't even need to go into that one. The pale horse and the Jews in the Holocaust. Yeah. And all the, is it 50 million? I checked it out. Deaths during World War II. Okay. 50 million. And that was of those that fought in the war. Okay. And there must have been many more thereafter, especially with those two atomic explosions. Okay. It's all in there. It's all in there. Yeah. Got ya. Alright, I've got ya. Atheists, agnostics, this is irrefutable. Alright. You better change your whole viewpoint. You better change your beliefs, because this is evidence.